The Galactic Council had always dismissed Earth as a minor species, a backwater world with primitive technology and no real military power. The reports from scouts showed nothing impressive: simple planetary defenses, outdated starships, and no signs of interstellar war fleets. But there were whispers: fleets that vanished near human territory, armies that never returned, wars that ended before they began. For years, the Council ignored these rumors, until now. A small reconnaissance fleet from the Vorn Dominion drifted through the cold void of space, just outside Earth's solar system. Their mission was simple: scan for hidden military structures, assess human strength, and confirm whether Earth was truly as weak as it seemed. Commander Xelvar stood at the bridge of his warship, watching as his crew worked. Their scanners reached deep into the Sol system, analyzing every planet, every station, every signal. "Report," he demanded. Lieutenant Rith's scaled fingers moved quickly over the console. Her reptilian eyes narrowed. "Strange. Our deep scans detect nothing unusual. Their planetary defenses are basic, a few outdated fleets near Mars. Nothing powerful." Xelvar smirked. "Just as expected. The humans are weak. This mission is a waste of time." But then, an alarm blared across the ship. "Commander," Rith's voice was sharp, "something is moving near Neptune's orbit." Xelvar turned sharply. "What is it?" "A fleet." Rith hesitated. "No, it's something else." She adjusted the scanner frequencies. "It's enormous. But it's not reflecting any known energy signature. It's like..." The ship's lights flickered. The screens turned to static. A deep, resonating hum filled the air, like a heartbeat in the void. And then, a voice. "You shouldn't be here." The entire crew froze. Xelvar's blood turned cold. What was that? Rith's hands trembled over the controls. That wasn't a normal transmission. It didn't come from any known human frequency. It came from... She swallowed hard. "Inside our own ship." Xelvar's eyes widened. "Impossible. No one has boarded us." Before anyone could react, the main screen flashed back to life. The static cleared, replaced by a single image. A warship. But not just any warship. It was huge, bigger than anything the Vorn Dominion had ever seen. It was like a floating fortress, its dark metal exterior reflecting no light, as if it absorbed the very void itself. There were no visible weapons, no energy signals, nothing to suggest how it moved. And yet, it was right in front of them. Rith gasped. That wasn't there before. Xelvar's heart pounded. It was cloaked. And then, in a blink, it was gone. Not warped away. Not moving at high speed. Just gone. The ship's sensors frantically scanned the area. Nothing. As if it had never been there. Rith's voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, what if we've been wrong about the humans?" Xelvar's claws gripped the console. "They can't be this powerful. If they were, we would have known." But deep down, doubt crawled into his mind. What if humanity had never been weak? What if they had never been prey? What if they were simply waiting? Outside, the void remained silent, but the crew knew. Something was out there, watching, waiting. And they had just made a terrible mistake. The Vorn Dominion's reconnaissance ship drifted in stunned silence. Every crew member on the bridge could feel the tension, the sheer wrongness of what had just happened. A warship had appeared, defying every known law of detection. And then, in a blink, it was gone. Commander Xelvar's claws tapped against the metal railing as his mind raced. The Galactic Council had long believed Earth was weak. Yet this was not weakness. "Run another scan," he ordered, his voice sharp. Lieutenant Rith's fingers worked quickly over the controls, but her expression turned pale. "Commander, I don't understand." "What?" Xelvar snapped. Rith hesitated. "I tried scanning for that ship again. I even checked our own logs. She turned to face him. It's not there. It's like we imagined it. Zelvar's throat tightened. No, that was real. He had seen it. They had all seen it. A low murmur spread through the bridge crew. Some whispered about human tricks. Others muttered about ghosts. Zelvar ignored them. Prepare a data burst. Send a message back to High Command. But before Rith could even start the transmission, a new alert flashed across the control panels. Unknown gravitational distortions detected. Rith's voice wavered. Something's coming. Zelvar straightened. Another ship. No, multiple ships. The bridge fell silent. On the main screen, Neptune's orbit shimmered. And then, one by one, ships materialized. Huge, dark vessels, silent, without markings. A fleet. Zelvar's breath caught in his throat. This was impossible. There had been no energy spikes, no hyperspace signals, nothing to indicate movement. And yet, here they were. The Vorn crew had never seen anything like them. Unlike the clunky, metallic designs of the Dominion or the sleek, elegant crafts of the Galactic Council, these ships looked unnatural. They weren't designed for intimidation. They weren't designed for war. They were designed for control. A deep hum filled the air again, the same eerie vibration that had rattled the ship earlier. And then, the voice returned. Leave. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a warning. It was a command. Zelvar's claws dug into the console. His pride screamed at him to resist, to push forward, to demand answers. But his survival instinct screamed louder. Rith turned to him, eyes wide with something between terror and awe. Commander, what do we do? Zelvar exhaled slowly. Turn the ship around. Sir, turn the ship around. The order was given. Engines roared to life. The Vorn vessel pivoted and started to retreat, moving away from Neptune's orbit, away from the silent fleet. But just as they reached the edge of the system, a final message crackled through their communications system. A whisper. A warning. Do not return. And just like that, the connection went dead. No trace of the signal. No trace of the fleet. Just silence. Zelvar's eyes remained fixed on the screen, even as the ship sped away. He knew the truth now. Humanity had never been weak. They had simply been hiding. And the universe was never supposed to find them. The Vorn Dominion's ship sped through the void, retreating from the eerie silence of the Sol system. The crew sat in tense silence, their eyes flicking between screens, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Commander Zelvar gripped the armrest of his command chair. His mind was a battlefield of thoughts. The Dominion had always considered Earth an insignificant backwater, barely worth a passing glance. But they were wrong. Something was hidden there, something dangerous. Lieutenant Rith spoke up, her voice tight. Commander, should we report this to High Command? Zelvar didn't answer immediately. His instincts screamed at him. This knowledge was not safe. If they sent this data to the Dominion, the High Command would send a fleet, a war. And after what he had seen, they would lose. Hold the report, he said at last. We need more information. Rith hesitated. More information. Sir, those ships. They let us go. What if? The ship's lights flickered. Every console went dark. The hum of the engine stuttered. The ship lurched. And then, static. A transmission crackled to life over the speakers. No visuals. No recognizable signal. Just a distorted voice. Calm, unreadable, inhuman. You were warned. The bridge crew froze. Zelvar's blood ran cold. The ship's lights blinked back on, and suddenly, all systems were normal. No trace of the interference. No trace of the transmission. Sir, Rith's voice trembled. What do we do? Zelvar forced himself to think. This was beyond military tactics, beyond strategy. This was survival. He turned to his crew. We stay silent. No reports. No data transmissions. Nothing. We were never here. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, but no one objected. Zelvar inhaled deeply. He had faced many battles, but never had he felt this kind of fear. Because this wasn't just about war. It was about control. And humanity. They were the ones holding the leash. Zelvar barely slept. The moment his ship had left the Sol system, paranoia crept into his mind. They let us go. But why? Was it a warning? A test? A message? His claws tapped against the console as he watched the data screen. The Vorn Dominion ship was on a direct course to the nearest relay station, standard protocol after an expedition. But protocol no longer felt safe. Lieutenant Rith approached, her voice hushed. "Sir, something's wrong." Zelvar turned to her. "What now?" Rith hesitated before whispering. "The data. It's disappearing." A cold chill ran through the bridge. Zelvar stood immediately, moving toward her console. His eyes scanned the screen. Logs from their mission, sensor recordings, even simple navigational data. Gone. As if the system had never recorded their encounter with the silent fleet at all. The bridge crew whispered among themselves. Some suggested a virus. Others feared sabotage. But Zelvar knew better. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. "Check the external backups," he ordered. Rith's hands moved quickly over the console. Her breath caught. "Sir, the backups are gone too." Zelvar's mind raced. There was no way to send proof to High Command. No way to explain what they had seen. No evidence. The silence was shattered by an urgent beep from the sensors. The crew snapped their attention to the main display. A new anomaly detected. Zelvar's stomach twisted. "Show me." The screen flickered. Space around them looked normal. Until the image shifted. And there they were. The fleet. The same silent, dark warships that had appeared near Neptune were now following them. No hyperspace wake. No energy signatures. Just there. A shudder ran through the crew. Rith's voice barely rose above a whisper. "They don't want us to leave." Zelvar's hands clenched. "No," he muttered. "They don't care about us leaving." He turned to face the terrified faces of his crew. "They care about what we remember." And that realization sent ice through his veins. Zelvar felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on him. The silent fleet still lingered in the void, their dark forms barely visible against the stars. No transmissions, no weapons locked, just watching. The Dominion had fought countless wars, conquered entire star systems, crushed rebellions with overwhelming force. But this wasn't war. This was control. Lieutenant Rith's voice was barely above a whisper. "Sir, they've done this before." Zelvar's gaze snapped to her. "What?" Rith swallowed hard. "I checked the historical records. There are gaps. Entire sectors of Dominion history that just vanish. No records of battles. No reports of what happened to fleets. Just silence." Zelvar's claws tapped against the console. His instincts screamed that she was right. This wasn't the first time. His mind raced. If entire wars had been erased, then what if we were never supposed to know about Earth? Rith's voice trembled. A deep silence settled over the bridge. The crew shifted uneasily. The Dominion prided itself on its intelligence, its absolute control over history. But if these humans, these hidden warships, had the ability to erase wars from history itself? Zelvar's hands curled into fists. The Dominion thought itself the galaxy's dominant power, but something else had been shaping history from the shadows. And humanity. They weren't just another species. They were the keepers of war. And they had decided who was allowed to remember it. Zelvar sat in stunned silence. The weight of realization settled heavily upon him. Wars erased, fleets vanished, history rewritten. And the common thread through it all: Earth. Humanity had not only survived, but had shaped the galaxy from the shadows. Lieutenant Rith's voice was unsteady. "Sir, if they can erase wars, What happens to those who know too much? Zelvar didn't answer. The answer was already clear. They were still alive because the humans had allowed it. But for how long? The silent fleet remained in formation behind them, not attacking, not communicating, just waiting. What do we do? A junior officer whispered. Zelvar exhaled slowly. He had led men into battle, had made decisions that changed the fate of worlds. But this was different. This wasn't a fight they could win. We purged the data, he said at last. The crew looked at him in shock. Sir, Rith asked hesitantly. Zelvar's voice was firm. Erase everything. Logs, sensor readings, mission reports. We were never here. A long silence followed. The crew hesitated, but one by one, they turned to their consoles. Data was wiped. Evidence deleted. Their journey to Sol never happened. And yet, a question lingered in Zelvar's mind. How much of the galaxy's history was real? How many wars, civilizations, and victories had been buried in the void? How much of the Dominion's power was an illusion, carefully maintained by an unseen hand? A single transmission crackled through the ship's speakers. Calm, cold, human. Good choice. Then, just like that, the silent fleet vanished. No trace, no hyperspace wake, nothing. As if they had never been there at all. Zelvar's claws dug into his palm. They were never meant to know the truth. And now, the only choice was to forget. The ship drifted through the emptiness of space, the cold silence around them overwhelming. The crew had done as Zelvar ordered, erased every trace of their encounter, every detail about the silent fleet, and every memory of the truth they had uncovered. But no one felt at ease. No one spoke, as if the fear of remembering was more dangerous than the fear of the fleet itself. It was as though the very act of thinking about it would bring the consequences crashing down. Zelvar stood at the helm, staring out at the stars. A deep unease gnawed at him, something he couldn't shake, no matter how much he tried to push it to the back of his mind. The silent fleet had disappeared, but what if they were still out there? Watching, waiting. Sir, Rith's voice pulled him from his thoughts. He turned to face her, his expression grim. There's something else, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Zelvar's heart skipped a beat. What now? Rith hesitated. She looked at the rest of the crew, but they were all silent, as if too afraid to speak. Then, slowly, she turned her screen toward him. Zelvar stared at it for a moment, processing the data. Then his eyes widened. What is this? He demanded. A series of coordinates. Destinations all over the galaxy. Some familiar. Others unknown. This is from the ship's core, Rith explained. I thought we erased everything. But there's something still here. Some kind of hidden data. These are real-time locations, and they're not ours. They've been coming through for weeks. Zelvar clenched his jaw. Do you mean? Yes, Rith interrupted. They're from the fleet. The humans. They're tracking us. A chill ran through Zelvar's spine. The humans had wiped the evidence, but they had left something behind. Something unseen. They knew, he muttered. They knew we would try to forget. And they want us to remember. A sudden realization hit him hard. The silent fleet wasn't just observing. It wasn't just waiting. It was setting a trap. Zelvar ran his claws through his hair. We can't outrun them. They're not trying to kill us, Rith added. They're trying to show us something. Something we're not supposed to see. Zelvar's mind raced, the puzzle pieces falling into place. He had always thought the Dominion had been the apex power in the galaxy, but the humans, these unknown players, had a far deeper reach than he ever imagined. It wasn't just a matter of control. It was a matter of reality itself. The humans were not merely a race of warriors. They were the guardians of history, of what could and could not be known. And now they had brought Zelvar to the edge of an unknown truth, something even his most advanced mind couldn't comprehend. We need to get to those coordinates. Zelvar said, his voice steady despite the chaos churning inside. We need to understand what they want from us. Rith's eyes widened. Are you sure about this, sir? What if we're walking straight into their hands? Zelvar met her gaze, his resolve hardening. It's not about survival anymore. It's about understanding the truth. And with that, he gave the order. The ship turned, heading towards the unknown, to the coordinates that would reveal the darkest, most dangerous truth about humanity and their place in the galaxy. But as they moved deeper into the black, Zelvar couldn't shake the thought that perhaps the most terrifying thing of all wasn't the fleet. It was the truth they were about to uncover. The ship powered through the cold void of space, its engines humming softly as it approached the coordinates that had been haunting them. Every crew member was on edge, nervous glances exchanged in the silence of the control room. The screens flickered with data that didn't seem to make sense. The farther they went, the more distorted the readings became. Zelvar's mind raced. What were they about to face? What could be so important that the humans had gone to such great lengths to hide it? We're getting close, Rith said, her voice barely audible. Zelvar nodded, but he didn't speak. His claws gripped the edge of his chair, his eyes never leaving the star map. He had led armies, fought in countless battles, and faced down enemies of unimaginable power, but none of that prepared him for this. This wasn't a battle. This was a confrontation with the unknown. The ship's sensors picked up a faint signal. It was weak, almost imperceptible. Zelvar's heart skipped a beat. The humans had left something here, hidden deep within the fabric of space. We're here, Rith said, her voice filled with awe. Ahead of them, a massive structure materialized out of the darkness. It was like nothing they had ever seen before. A colossal space station, surrounded by massive arrays of energy and massive defensive weaponry. But there was no sign of life. No ships. No humans. Zelvar stared at it, his breath catching in his throat. This wasn't just a military outpost. This was something far older, far more significant. Sir, what is this? Rith asked, her voice trembling. Zelvar didn't respond at first. His eyes narrowed. He had the distinct feeling they had stumbled upon something far beyond their understanding. As they drew closer, a sudden signal burst from the station. It was a transmission, but there was something eerie about it. A voice, cold and commanding. Welcome, Zelvar. The voice was unmistakably human, but it wasn't the voice of a soldier or a diplomat. This was the voice of someone who had seen the entirety of the universe and had mastered it. We've been expecting you, the voice continued. You've been part of a plan that goes back centuries, a plan that was never meant to be understood. Until now. Zelvar's eyes widened in shock. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he knew he had stepped into something far bigger than any war or mission. Why? He asked, his voice hoarse. Why us? Why now? The transmission paused, as if considering the question. Then, the answer came, slow and deliberate. You were never meant to dominate. You were never meant to conquer. You were chosen as the protectors of life itself. The words echoed in Zelvar's mind, and suddenly, everything clicked. The Dominion, the wars, the galaxy's power struggles, it was all a carefully crafted illusion. The humans hadn't been hiding. They had been guarding. You have been trained to fight, to survive, to protect, the voice continued. But now, it's time for you to understand your true purpose. Zelvar's thoughts spun. The reality of what he was hearing began to settle in. The humans weren't just another race. They were something more, something ancient, something powerful. They were guardians. As the transmission ended, the ship's hull reverberated with a sudden pulse of energy. The screens flickered, showing holographic displays of galactic maps, ancient artifacts, and symbols long forgotten. Zelvar could barely process it all. The humans had known of the galaxy's darkest secrets for centuries. They were the silent guardians, the unsung protectors, and their true power had been hidden for millennia. We were never the hunters, Selvar muttered to himself, his eyes wide with the truth he was beginning to understand. We were the protectors. The silence that followed was deafening. The crew sat motionless, absorbing the magnitude of the discovery. The humans had concealed their strength not because they feared others, but because the galaxy wasn't ready for what they had guarded. Zelvar stood tall, his resolve hardening. This was no longer a mission. This was a calling. We're going to learn everything we can, Selvar said, his voice steady. And then, we will be the protectors of this knowledge. With that, the ship began its journey deeper into the station, ready to uncover the full scope of the legacy that the humans had left behind. But as they approached the heart of the station, Selvar couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into a role that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The Guardians had come, and now the universe would have to face the truth. Humanity was never the apex predator. They were the ones who had been trusted to guard life itself.